Today I'm going to show you 3 different types of wait screens. Now when you're programming in Microsoft Access, there are times when you've got to load data or perform a process where the user is confronted with looking at a form that doesn't tell them what's going on. All they might see is just a blank screen and wonder if the program's frozen up and do something that you don't want them to do at that point. So what I'm going to do is show you 3 different types of wait screens that I have programmed. These are in real life, in production applications right now. Hopefully it'll enlighten you as to ways that you can accomplish showing your users how to be a little bit patient. So the first one is an application where it has the exit button in the top and it has load current data. Now, loading the current data in this particular application takes about 5 minutes. So what I want to do then is to put some code underneath the load current data button that helps my user to both see that something is going on and be patient waiting for that process to finish. So in the process, I've put an embedded macro, and that macro points to another macro where I tend to put all my button macros into. So it's going to look for a sub macro called load data. So load data looks like this. What it does is it starts by opening a form, then it does 2 processes, 2 queries, 2 long-running queries that are part of the same process. The next thing it does is it loads the second form and then unloads the first form. Then it proceeds doing the same thing down the list here, where it then proceeds with the second process, loads the third form, and then unloads the second form, and on until we get to the final fifth form here, and then it unloads the fourth. Now notice there's not an unload for that 5th form, and let me show you why. What the first form tells you is that the admin information is started, and the second one tells you the helper file in this case is started, and then the next process, the helper file data is loaded now, and now it's going to make a copy of that helper file. And then the next one tells you that that previous one is loaded and the prover list is now started. And then the last thing, load is complete, click continue. Now the reason why I stop here is I want them to understand that the process has actually finished and elicit information from the user that says, I recognize that the process is finished. So I give them a button to press that says continue. Now note what they see at the top is a tab that says progress. Now I've loaded and unloaded 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 forms, and the last form is entitled progress. In fact, as you go through, turns out that all of them are entitled progress, but because I'm loading and unloading them one right after another, all the user ever sees is that the main menu tab is up here and there's a progress tab here. So they don't even know that it's multiple forms. All they see is, the information on the screen in the same spot with each form. That's the first way that I've done it. And the second way is I've taken a form and I've put several text boxes on it. So what you see here is what looks like a notepad over here, a lined piece of paper. I have 3 different processes over here that I need to build up some data sets. I need to create some data for analysis, and then I need to create some tables that analysts would then point to with a spreadsheet to do further analysis. So when I then look under the hood to see how this one is accomplished, what I see here is over here I start putting data, because really this and this, and in fact all 7 of these lines are separate unbound text boxes. And so what I'm doing behind the scenes is actually manipulating the data in each text box. So what I do is say that it's started, and I give you the date and time. I say what process is going, and then I give it the date and time that part of the process started. And as I continue through here, as I click this create analysis data button, I then go a little bit further. So the import of this data was complete. Now we see the data ready for use there, and we see analysis data creation started. That's this button, and the different processes in that. And then the analysis data is done, ready and loaded. Okay. Then I click the next button, create these tables for the business units to use, and I get the information started here. The analysis data loaded and ready, that's this bottom one here. So I moved that up to the third text box, and then I tell that I'm compiling the issues data for each business unit, because this data automatically is being analyzed under the scene, and it's being then put into different business units, so each one of those units can examine their data. So we got, Boeing Commercial Airplanes, Boeing Defense and Space, and several other entities that support those processes. And then we have the date and time over here, and then the process complete in the date and time. Now, when this is all done, they can then close this database and they can go to their spreadsheets, refresh their spreadsheets, and the data is ready for them to use. But the user has to get the data loaded and has to be able to be patient through all these processes, which in this case takes about 20 minutes to do all three. So how do I do this behind the scenes? I build the data sets, and here's the unbound text boxes that are all labeled progress 1, progress 2, and so forth down to progress 7. So when I look at the code is actually macros. I like working in macros, especially when queries and saved imports and exports are involved, because then I just have to call them, and that's easy enough. Now you could also convert these macros to code just as easily, and I could have written straight in code if I wanted to. Either way, I just tend to be lazy and leave it in a macro when I don't really need to do any more than that. So here you have the setting the value of each of these 7 text boxes. The top one, the data import is started, and then blanking these out and making sure that they are empty and ready for use. Then it repaints the object and then runs these imports, runs a query, runs the next import, and then tells in progress 2 that the import of the business plan data is complete. It does that for another set of data, repaints, runs a query, runs an import, and then tells that that set of data is complete. And you see I'm repeating these things, but you're also seeing that I'm opening and running these queries, and I'm setting the progress information. Now this is only for that first button that you saw. The other 2 buttons operate in the same exact way, with the exception that this top piece is a little different, because when the data import started, I leave that there, and in progress 2, I put what was, I think, in progress 5. By the time you get down to the bottom here, progress 5, data ready for use. I shove that up to progress 2, and then I use the next few rows to tell the rest of the story. The next one's a little bit more fun, because I have young people actually using this database. This is from my bookstore. And my bookstore has teenagers putting data in anywhere from age 12 up to about 16, 17. And because of that, we needed to find a unique and fun way to share something while they waited. The last thing we wanted to do is for an impatient teenager to start clicking around and trying to figure out why this form wasn't doing anything or wasn't moving. What we do is to call this form, we in our code here, where we're going to Google to get the data from the Google ISBN database. Now, if you want information on that, I have a whole video on how to go to the web to get data, so go look for that one. This is where we go ahead and say, once we're into that and know that we've got to go to Google, and it's going to take a few moments, sometimes it takes longer, sometimes it comes back really quick. But in any case, we open the form wait, then we set the form wait to focus. Now notice, we check to see if it's loaded first, because what happens is we have load several books at a time. So there's several times that it might go to Google. So we don't reload this form during one session. We load it the first time, and then it just loses the focus and gains the focus back. So that's why we check to see if it's already loaded, because if it's already loaded, we don't reload it, we just set the focus to it. So the next thing we do then is we set the picture number to 1. So, and then picknum.value equals pick. There's a text box that's labeled picknum, or the picture number. And then we set the subform to got focus. So the picknum value equals pick that we just set previously. And then let's take a look under the hood. Here's our form, and there's only 2 objects on it other than this text up here. So this first unbound text box is picknum. So picknum is the one that's actually driving the picture that's going to be here. In other words, it's dynamic. It doesn't show the same picture all the time. The default value when it first loads, the onload default value is 1, but the program, if it only is going to set focus, I'll show you in a few minutes how we change pictures. So the next thing here is the picture there. The picture there is an Access Imagine picture control. And if you want to know how to use Access Imagine, or where I got that piece of software to take pictures and display pictures dynamically in your database, check out the video on how to take a picture in Microsoft Access. Okay, so the control picknum, which is this unbound text box, is going to be the control source for that picture. And Access Imagine says, okay, that picture number is the one I'm going to go look for on the hard drive. And on the hard drive, then it displays whichever picture number that is. Now, as it loses focus, in other words, Google's done its thing and it goes away from this form and goes back to the other form to display the data that Google has brought back. As it loses its focus on the subform, we say picture equals picture plus 1, as long as it's not over 33. And if it is over 33, reset it back to 1 so we don't go over the 33 pictures that we have, so we don't error out, and that subroutine. So we're going to rotate through the pictures. So next, here's all the pictures of the puppies. And I really appreciate you watching this video, and please subscribe and hit that like button if you liked what you saw. Hopefully this will be valuable to you, and we'll see you again later. Thanks.